Caitlin Clark wasn't just another basketball player. She was a force of nature, someone who could light up an arena with her energy and talent. From the moment she stepped onto the court in college, people knew she was special. Her journey began at Iowa, where she shattered records that had stood for decades. Every game she played felt like a spectacle. Fans would pack the stands, holding their breath as she dribbled down the court, eyes scanning for the perfect shot. And when she let it fly, it was magic. What made Caitlin stand out wasn't just her skill, it was her personality. She had this way of connecting with people, whether she was laughing during interviews or signing autographs for kids after games. People didn't just watch her play, they rooted for her. They saw themselves in her hustle, her determination, and her refusal to back down no matter how tough things got. To many young girls, she became more than a player. She was a role model, proof that they too could dream big and achieve greatness. When Caitlin entered the WNBA, the league wasn't exactly thriving. For years, it had struggled to get the attention it deserved. Games were often played in half-empty arenas, and even die-hard fans sometimes felt overlooked by the broader sports world. But Caitlin changed all of that. The minute she joined the league, everything seemed to shift. Suddenly, people who had never paid attention to women's basketball before were tuning in. Families started showing up to games wearing jerseys with her name on the back. Social media buzzed with highlights of her incredible plays, and news outlets couldn't stop talking about her impact. Her presence did more than fill seats. It brought money into the league. Merchandise sales went through the roof. Jerseys, hats, posters, you name it, people were buying it. Sponsors who had once ignored the WNBA came knocking, eager to partner with teams and players because they saw the potential Caitlin represented. Television networks started paying closer attention too, airing games in prime-time slots and promoting them like never before. Ratings climbed higher than anyone expected, and for the first time in years, there was real optimism about the future of women's sports. But Caitlin's influence went beyond numbers and statistics. She gave the league a heartbeat. Before her arrival, the WNBA sometimes felt like it was fighting an uphill battle, trying to prove its worth in a male-dominated sports landscape. With Caitlin leading the charge, though, the conversation shifted. People weren't just talking about what the league lacked, they were celebrating what it had. Young athletes looked up to her, imagining themselves following in her footsteps. Parents encouraged their daughters to pick up a basketball, knowing they now had someone to look up to. It wasn't just about Caitlin being good at basketball, it was about how she carried herself off the court. She spoke openly about the challenges women face in sports, using her platform to push for change. Whether it was advocating for better pay or calling out inequalities, she refused to stay silent. That resonated with fans. They admired not only her talent but also her courage to speak truth to power. In doing so, she helped transform the WNBA into something bigger than just a sports league. It became a movement. For a while, it felt like the sky was the limit. The WNBA was finally getting the recognition it deserved, and Caitlin was at the center of it all. Fans dreamed of what the future might hold. A league that could compete with the NBA in terms of popularity, resources, and respect. Teams invested in building stronger rosters, knowing that Caitlin's star power would draw attention to everyone around her. Coaches talked about creating strategies that revolved around her unique abilities, while teammates praised her leadership and work ethic. Yet beneath the surface, there were signs of fragility. The league's newfound success relied heavily on one person, and everyone knew it. What would happen if Caitlin ever decided to step away? At the time, it seemed unthinkable. How could anyone walk away from something so important, especially when they were at the peak of their career? But life has a way of throwing curveballs, and soon enough the unthinkable became reality. Little did anyone know, the foundation of the WNBA's resurgence was about to be tested in ways no one could have predicted. Even as the league basked in the glow of Caitlin's brilliance, whispers of vulnerability lingered. Some insiders worried that the focus on her overshadowed other talented players. Others pointed out that the infrastructure supporting the WNBA still needed work: better facilities, fairer salaries, and more consistent media coverage. These concerns were valid, but they were easy to ignore when Caitlin was lighting up the scoreboard and drawing massive crowds. For now, the league thrived, riding the wave of her stardom. But deep down, everyone wondered, could this momentum last without her? It was supposed to be just another quiet day during the off-season, the kind where players relax, recharge, and prepare for the next chapter of their careers. But when Caitlin Clark posted that photo on Instagram, everything changed. The image was simple. A black and white shot of her sitting alone on a bench staring off into the distance. The caption was even simpler. "Sometimes you need to step away to find yourself again." Those few words sent shockwaves through the sports world. At first, people thought it might be a joke or some kind of cryptic tease for an upcoming announcement. Maybe she was hinting at a new team, a big endorsement deal, or even a surprise event. But as hours turned into days, it became clear this wasn't part of any promotional campaign. Caitlin wasn't coming back anytime soon. She had stepped away from basketball, not because of an injury, not because of a scandal, but because she needed space. And just like that, the WNBA lost its brightest star. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Fans flooded social media, sharing memes, theories, and heartfelt messages. Some expressed support, saying they understood the pressure someone like Caitlin must have been under. Others were angry, accusing her of abandoning the league she had worked so hard to elevate. Analysts debated endlessly on TV and podcasts, trying to make sense of what had happened. Burnout, a personal issue, a disagreement with the league. No one knew for sure, and Caitlin wasn't offering any answers. Her silence only fueled more speculation. For the WNBA, the timing couldn't have been worse. The off-season is usually a period of anticipation, where fans eagerly await the return of their favorite players and teams gear up for another season. But without Caitlin, excitement quickly gave way to uncertainty. Ticket sales, which had skyrocketed in recent years thanks to her popularity, began to plummet. Season ticket holders started canceling their subscriptions, unsure if the games would still hold the same appeal without her on the court. Sponsors who had rushed to partner with the league suddenly hesitated, wondering if investing in the WNBA was still worth the risk. The impact rippled far beyond finances. Players who had looked up to Caitlin as a leader felt a void. Teammates, who had relied on her energy and guidance, now found themselves questioning how to move forward. Even veteran athletes, who had spent years fighting for recognition and respect, admitted they weren't sure what to do without her. "She brought us together," one player said in an emotional interview. "Without her, it feels like we've lost our anchor." As the weeks went by, the situation grew increasingly dire. Training camps opened, but the usual buzz was missing. Reporters showed up to cover practices, but the stories they wrote lacked the enthusiasm of previous seasons. Fans who used to line up outside arenas for autograph sessions stayed home, unsure if they cared enough to show up anymore. Broadcast. Networks, which had invested heavily in promoting the league, scrambled to adjust their plans. One executive admitted privately that they were considering scaling back coverage unless something changed, and fast. Meanwhile, rival leagues abroad began circling like sharks, sensing an opportunity. European teams, known for offering lucrative contracts and better resources, reached out to top WNBA players, tempting them with promises of stability and support. Several high-profile athletes made the leap, leaving the WNBA weaker than ever. It wasn't just about losing talent, it was about losing hope. For years, Caitlin had been the face of progress, proof that women's basketball could thrive if given the chance. Now it felt like that progress was slipping away. Behind the scenes, league officials held emergency meetings trying to figure out how to salvage the season. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert issued statements reassuring fans that the WNBA was still strong, but her words rang hollow. Empty seats don't lie, and neither do declining ratings. Even efforts to highlight other stars fell flat. Fans wanted Caitlin, plain and simple. Without her, nothing else seemed to matter. And then there was the human side of it all. People didn't just miss Caitlin as a player, they missed her as a person. They missed seeing her laugh during interviews, hearing her talk passionately, about equality, watching her connect with young fans after games. She had become more than an athlete. She was a symbol of possibility, a reminder that women could shine just as brightly as men in sports. Losing her felt like losing a piece of that dream. As the countdown to the regular season continued, the mood remained grim. Teams tried to stay positive, focusing on teamwork and resilience, but it was hard to ignore the elephant in the room. Posters featuring Caitlin still hung in locker rooms, a bittersweet reminder of what once was. Coaches encouraged players to step up and fill the gap she left behind, but no one could truly replace her. She wasn't just a player, she was a movement. And without her, the movement felt stuck. By the time opening night rolled around, the atmosphere was noticeably different. Arenas that had vibrated with energy in the past now felt eerily quiet. Players ran onto the court with determination, but the cheers were muted, lacking the electric charge that Caitlin had always inspired. Cameras panned to empty rows of seats, a stark contrast to the packed houses of previous seasons. Commentators did their best to keep things upbeat, pointing out promising rookies and standout performances, but the underlying truth was impossible to ignore. The WNBA was struggling, and everyone knew why. In the end, Caitlin's absence wasn't just about basketball, it was about what she represented. She had given fans a reason to believe in something bigger than themselves, a vision of a future where women's sports could stand shoulder to shoulder with the best in the world. Without her, that vision felt shaky, uncertain. The question on everyone's mind was whether the league could survive this blow, or if Caitlin's departure marked the beginning of the end. As the weeks turned into months, the cracks in the WNBA began to widen. Without Caitlin Clark on the court, the league wasn't just losing money, it was losing its soul. The energy that had once filled arenas and electrified fans seemed to vanish overnight. Games that used to feel like celebrations now felt like afterthoughts. Players tried their best to keep spirits high, but it was clear they were fighting an uphill battle. The absence of one person had exposed weaknesses in the foundation of the entire league. Ticket sales continued to drop, and not just for marquee matchups. Even games featuring long-standing rivalries or playoff contenders struggled to draw crowds. Families who had made it a tradition to attend games every weekend stopped showing up. Kids who had begged their parents for jerseys with Caitlin's name on the back now wore them less frequently, if at all. Merchandise booths at arenas sat half empty, with vendors reporting some of the lowest numbers they'd seen in years. It wasn't just about Caitlin being gone. It was about what her departure symbolized. For many fans, she had been the reason to care, and without her, the excitement fizzled out. Sponsors, too, began pulling back their support. Brands that had eagerly signed deals during the height of Caitlin's popularity suddenly grew hesitant. Executives questioned whether investing in the WNBA still made sense when the league's future felt so uncertain. Advertisements featuring Caitlin were quietly removed from TV spots and billboards. Some companies even shifted their focus entirely, funneling resources into other sports or entertainment ventures. The message was clear: without a guaranteed return on investment, the WNBA was no longer a priority for corporate America. Internally, tensions within the league started bubbling over. Veteran players who had spent years fighting for recognition and respect felt abandoned by leadership. They accused the WNBA of resting on its laurels during Caitlin's era instead of addressing deeper systemic issues. Pay disparities between male and female athletes remained glaringly obvious, and working conditions, like travel accommodations and recovery resources, still lagged behind those offered to NBA players. These weren't new problems, but without Caitlin's star power to distract from them, they became impossible to ignore. Younger players inspired by Caitlin's example found themselves questioning whether pursuing a career in the WNBA was worth the sacrifice. Many had dreamed of playing professionally since childhood, imagining a future where they could inspire others the way Caitlin had inspired them. But now, faced with empty arenas and dwindling opportunities, doubt crept in. "What's the point?" one rookie asked during a candid interview. "If we can't even get people to show up, how are we supposed to make this sustainable?" The breaking point came midway through the season, when several top players publicly aired their frustrations. One forward, known for her fiery competitiveness, didn't hold back during a post-game press conference. "We've been talking about these issues for years," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, "and nothing changes. If we can't keep our best players happy, if we can't take care of the people who give everything to this game, then how can we expect anyone else to care?" Her words struck a nerve, sparking heated debates across social media and beyond. Critics seized the moment to argue that the league had relied too heavily on Caitlin Clark, failing to build a sustainable model around her success. They pointed out that while she had brought unprecedented attention to the WNBA, the infrastructure supporting the league hadn't kept pace. Facilities were outdated, marketing strategies were inconsistent, and efforts to engage younger audiences often fell flat. To them, Caitlin's departure wasn't just a loss. It was proof that the league wasn't ready to stand on its own. Fans, meanwhile, were torn. Some defended the WNBA, arguing that blaming the league for Caitlin's decision was unfair. Others admitted they missed her presence but insisted the league needed to adapt rather than dwell on what it had lost. Online forums lit up with discussions about what could be done to save the WNBA. Should the focus shift to developing new stars? Could technology play a role in reviving interest? Or was the league simply too far gone to recover? Amid the chaos, there were moments of hope. A few teams managed to rally their fan bases by emphasizing teamwork and community outreach. Players organized local events, visiting schools and hosting clinics to reconnect with younger generations. Coaches encouraged their teams to play with passion and grit, reminding them why they fell in love with basketball in the first place. Broadcasters tried to inject enthusiasm into their commentary, highlighting standout performances and celebrating small victories. But these efforts felt like patchwork solutions, temporary fixes for a much larger problem. By the end of the season, the toll was undeniable. Attendance records hit historic lows, and television ratings reflected a sharp decline in viewership. League officials scrambled to find answers, holding meetings with team owners, sponsors, and players in an attempt to chart a path forward. Some suggested drastic measures like restructuring salaries or rebranding the league entirely. Others argued for patience, insisting that rebuilding would take time. But no matter what ideas were floated, one question lingered in the air. Could the WNBA survive without Caitlin Clark? For the players, the situation was deeply personal. Many had poured their hearts into the game, sacrificing countless hours and enduring endless challenges to pursue their dreams. Now they faced the possibility that all their hard work might amount to nothing. "It's not just about us," one veteran guard said during a team huddle. "It's about the next generation. If we let this fall apart, what kind of message does that send to the kids who look up to us?" Despite the gloom, there were whispers of resilience. Players leaned on each other for support, forming bonds that transcended individual egos or team rivalries. They reminded themselves and each other that basketball was more than just a business. It was a shared passion, a source of joy and connection. And while Caitlin's absence left a gaping hole, it also created an opportunity for others to step up and redefine what the WNBA could be. But as the final buzzer sounded on the last game of the season, the mood remained somber. Fans filed out of arenas quietly, their cheers replaced by murmurs of uncertainty. Players hugged each other tightly, unsure of what lay ahead. League officials retreated to their offices, poring over spreadsheets and brainstorming strategies. Everyone wanted to believe the worst was behind them, but deep down they knew the road to recovery would be long and difficult. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA had been forced to confront its vulnerabilities head-on. The question was whether it could rise to the challenge, or if the league's struggles signaled something far more troubling. As the off-season loomed, one thing was certain. The next chapter would define the future of women's basketball, for better or for worse. The WNBA was on the brink of collapse, and everyone knew it. The league had always been resilient, but this time felt different. Without Caitlin Clark, the cracks in its foundation were too big to ignore. Empty seats, plummeting ratings, and Sponsors jumping ship painted a bleak picture. Fans who once filled arenas with energy now tuned out, leaving the league scrambling for solutions. It was a crisis that demanded bold action, and Commissioner Kathy Engelbert knew there was no room for half measures. In a desperate bid to save the league, Engelbert launched a campaign called Rebuild Together. It wasn't just a slogan. It was a promise to fans, players, and communities that the WNBA would fight to stay alive. The initiative aimed to reconnect with the people who mattered most, the ones who had cheered through thick and thin, bought tickets, worn jerseys, and believed in the power of women's basketball. This wasn't about glossing over problems or slapping a fresh coat of paint on old issues. It was about digging deep, addressing root causes, and rebuilding trust. The first step was listening. League officials organized town hall meetings across the country, inviting fans, players, coaches, and even critics to share their thoughts. These weren't polished press conferences where executives spoke at length about vague plans. They were raw, honest conversations. People aired grievances about everything from ticket prices to player treatment. Some voiced frustration over how the league handled Caitlin's departure, while others expressed concern about the lack of investment in grassroots programs. At times, the discussions grew heated, but they also revealed something important. People still cared. Despite the setbacks, there was a flicker of hope. Engelbert didn't stop there. She made it her mission to visit schools, community centers, and youth leagues, talking directly to kids who dreamed of playing basketball one day. She wanted them to know that the WNBA wasn't giving up, and neither should they. Her message was simple. This league belongs to all of us. We're going to build it back stronger together. Players joined in too, hosting clinics and mentoring young athletes. They shared stories of their own struggles, showing kids that success isn't just about talent. It's about perseverance, teamwork, and heart. Behind the scenes, the league worked tirelessly to modernize its approach. Technology became a key focus as they looked for ways to make games more engaging. Virtual reality broadcasts allowed fans to experience matches like never before, putting them courtside even if they were miles away. Interactive apps let viewers vote on challenges during timeouts, win exclusive merchandise, and connect with players in real time. Social media campaigns encouraged fans to share their favorite moments using hashtags like WNBA Revival and Rebuild Together, creating a sense of unity online. But perhaps the most significant change came in how the league treated its players. For years, athletes had spoken out about disparities between the WNBA and other professional sports leagues. Now the league finally seemed ready to listen. New policies ensured better travel accommodations, improved medical care, and access to cutting-edge training facilities. Salaries remained a sticking point, but incremental increases showed progress. More importantly, the league committed to supporting players' mental health, providing resources and counseling services to help them navigate the pressures of professional sports. Rule changes were introduced to make games faster-paced and more exciting. The shot clock was shortened, encouraging quicker decision-making and higher-scoring matchups. Three-point contests and skills challenges added flair to all-star weekends, drawing attention back to the athleticism and creativity of the players. Broadcast networks embraced these innovations, airing games during primetime slots and promoting them heavily. Analysts noted that the renewed focus on entertainment helped reignite interest among casual viewers. Still, the elephant in the room remained. Caitlin Clark. Her absence loomed large, and no amount of rule tweaks or tech upgrades could fully replace her impact. Fans held on to hope that she might return someday, but for now the league had to find a way to thrive without her. That meant shining a spotlight on other stars, players who had long been overshadowed by Caitlin's brilliance. Teams worked harder than ever to promote their rosters, highlighting breakout performances and unsung heroes. One rookie guard, known for her lightning-fast crossovers and clutch shooting, quickly became a fan favorite. Another veteran center earned praise for her leadership and defensive dominance. Slowly, but surely, the narrative began to shift. The turning point came when the league partnered with a major streaming service to produce a documentary series called More Than a Game. Each episode focused on a different player, telling their story both on and off the court. Viewers got an inside look at the sacrifices, triumphs, and challenges faced by women in professional sports. The series humanized the athletes, reminding fans that they were more than just competitors. They were mothers, sisters, activists, and trailblazers. When the first episode aired, social media lit up with positive reactions. Fans praised the authenticity and vulnerability of the players featured, saying it gave them a newfound appreciation for the league. Even so, the road to recovery was far from smooth. Critics argued that the efforts were too little, too late. Some questioned whether the WNBA could ever regain the momentum it had lost. Others pointed out that rival leagues abroad continued to lure top talent with promises of better pay and resources. Every small victory felt fragile, like a house of cards waiting to collapse. Yet amidst the uncertainty, there were glimmers of progress. Attendance numbers ticked upward, albeit slightly. Sponsors cautiously returned, encouraged by the league's transparency and willingness to adapt. Young fans started showing up to games again, inspired by the stories they'd seen in the documentary series. Players noticed the difference, not just in the size of the crowds, but in the energy. People weren't just watching, they were engaging. They were cheering. They were believing. As the season drew to a close, the league faced a crossroads. The Rebuild Together campaign had sparked a spark of hope, but sustaining it would require relentless effort. Would the WNBA continue to innovate, invest, and inspire? Or would it slip back into old patterns, repeating the mistakes that had led to this crisis in the first place? One thing was clear. The league couldn't rely on one person to carry it anymore. Caitlin Clark had shown what was possible, but her absence proved that true sustainability required more than a single star. It needed a foundation built on fairness, innovation, and community. The question now was whether the WNBA had the courage to finish what it had started, or if the dream of a thriving women's basketball league would remain just that, a dream. Months had passed since Caitlin Clark stepped away from the game, and just when it seemed like the WNBA was running out of options, whispers began to circulate. People claimed they'd spotted her practicing at a private gym in Los Angeles. At first, no one paid much attention. Rumors about Caitlin's return had popped up before, only to fizzle out. But this time felt different. Sources close to her confirmed that she was seriously considering a comeback, but on her terms. She wasn't just thinking about herself. She wanted guarantees that the league would commit to supporting its players in ways it hadn't before. The news spread like wildfire. Fans who had all but given up on the WNBA suddenly found themselves holding on to hope again. Social media buzzed with speculation, and reporters camped outside the gym where Caitlin was supposedly training. Her name trended worldwide for days, a reminder of the magnetic pull she still had over the basketball world. For many, her potential return symbolized more than just one player coming back. It represented a chance for redemption, for the league to prove it could rise above its struggles. League officials wasted no time reaching out. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert personally called Caitlin, inviting her to meet and discuss her concerns. The meeting took place behind closed doors, lasting hours as both sides hashed out what needed to change. Caitlin didn't hold back. She talked about the pressures players faced, the lack of mental health resources, and the need for fairer pay. She emphasized that any comeback wouldn't be about her alone. It had to benefit everyone involved in the league. "This isn't just about me," she said during the discussion. "It's about making sure every woman who plays this game has the opportunity to thrive, not just survive." When Caitlin finally emerged from the meeting, flanked by Engelbert and a small group of veteran players, she addressed the media with tears in her eyes. Standing in front of a sea of microphones and cameras, she spoke directly to the fans. "I love this game and I love this league," she began, her voice steady but emotional. "But loving something means wanting better for it. If I'm going to come back, I need to know we're building something sustainable, not just for me, but for the next generation." Her words resonated deeply. Fans erupted in cheers, posting videos of her speech online alongside messages of support. Her announcement sent shockwaves through the sports world. Tickets for the remainder of the season sold out within hours. Sponsors who had pulled back their investments rushed to renew partnerships, eager to capitalize on the renewed excitement. Broadcast networks added extra coverage slots, promoting Caitlyn's return as the centerpiece of their programming. Jerseys with her name flew off shelves, and arenas buzzed with anticipation. It was as if someone had flipped a switch. The energy that had been missing for so long came roaring back. But Caitlyn's return wasn't just about boosting ticket sales or ratings. It marked a turning point for the league itself. In the weeks leading up to her first game back, the WNBA rolled out a series of initiatives aimed at addressing the issues Caitlyn had raised. Mental health resources were expanded, offering players access to counselors and wellness programs. Salaries saw modest increases and travel accommodations improved significantly. Teams also invested in youth outreach programs, partnering with schools and community organizations to inspire the next generation of athletes. Her first game back was nothing short of electric. Fans packed the arena, waving signs that read, "Welcome home," and chanting her name before tip-off. When Caitlyn stepped onto the court, the crowd erupted in applause, cheering not just for her but for everything she represented. The game itself lived up to the hype. She played with the same intensity and flair that had made her a legend, sinking three-pointers and dishing out assists like she'd never left. By the final buzzer, her team had secured a decisive victory, and the celebration spilled into the streets outside the arena. Yet, even as the league basked in the glow of Caitlyn's triumphant return, challenges remained. Rival leagues abroad continued to offer lucrative deals to top talent, tempting players with promises of stability and support. Pay disparities between male and female athletes persisted, and systemic inequalities still plagued women's sports as a whole. Caitlyn's presence couldn't solve these problems overnight, but it did reignite the conversation. Her advocacy inspired others to speak up, pushing for broader reforms beyond the confines of the WNBA. For the players, Caitlyn's return served as a reminder of why they played the game. She wasn't just a teammate or a competitor. She was a beacon of hope. Her resilience encouraged them to keep fighting even when the odds felt insurmountable. Practices grew more intense, games more passionate. Players leaned on each other, determined to show the world that the WNBA was more than just one person. It was a collective effort fueled by grit and determination. As the season progressed, the league began to find its footing again. Attendance numbers climbed steadily, and television ratings showed consistent growth. Young fans filled arenas once more, wearing jerseys and mimicking their favorite players' moves on makeshift courts in driveways and parks. The Rebuild Together campaign gained traction, fostering a sense of unity among fans, players, and communities. People started seeing the WNBA not just as a basketball league, but as a movement, a testament to the power of perseverance and teamwork. Still, the road ahead wasn't without bumps. Critics argued that Caitlyn's return masked deeper structural issues that needed addressing. Others warned against relying too heavily on one player again, no matter how talented or inspiring she might be. These concerns weren't unfounded, but they also underscored an important truth. The WNBA had proven it could adapt and evolve. It had survived its darkest days and emerged stronger, not because of one person, but because of the collective effort of everyone involved. By the end of the season, there was a palpable sense of accomplishment. Players hugged each other tightly after games, knowing they had weathered a storm together. Fans lingered in arenas, reluctant to leave, savoring the energy and connection they had missed for so long. League officials reflected on how far they had come, acknowledging that while the work wasn't done, they were heading in the right direction. Caitlyn's return reminded everyone of what was possible when passion met purpose. She hadn't single-handedly saved the WNBA, no one person could do that, but she had sparked a transformation. The league was no longer defined solely by its brightest star. It was defined by the people who believed in it, fought for it, and refused to let it fade away. As the final buzzer sounded on the championship game, the arena erupted in cheers. Caitlyn stood at center court, surrounded by teammates, opponents, and fans alike. They celebrated not just a title win, but the survival of something bigger than basketball. The WNBA had faced collapse, stared it down, and come out stronger on the other side. And as Caitlin looked around at the sea of smiling faces, she knew one thing for certain. The future of women's basketball was brighter than ever, and it belonged to all of them.